disease, soil, drought. Each season bringing new challenges farmers hope they won't face. Agriculture reporter Marcia Gorel follows the successes and failures of Saline County crops. She and University of Missouri Extension agronomist Wayne Crook will look at what's stunting local growth, what nudges farmers closer to productive harvest, and the science behind mid-Missouri fields.
Hi, my name is Marcia Gorel, and I'm the agriculture reporter for the Marshall Democrat News. I'm here today for our second edition of Crop Concerns for Video with local agronomist Wayne Crook from the University of Missouri Extension Service. Wayne writes a weekly column for us and has for about 5 years in the print edition of the Marshall Democrat News, and it's also featured as a blog on our agriculture page on the free online edition. Wayne, in your last column, you wrote about yellow flashes in soybeans. And I noticed you brought us a lot of examples today. And if you could tell us a little bit about what causes those yellow flashes. I've seen several fields myself. So if you could explain that to us and if that's going to be a yield problem for area farmers.
Usually what happens with yellow flash is that you apply glyphosate to the plant. And if the plants are under stress or they get an excessive dose of glyphosate, it ties up the magnesium in the leaves. This tie-up of the magnesium prevents the formation of chlorophyll, and so the leaves will turn yellow. If you look at the plants that have the yellow flash, you'll notice it's on the new growth, not the old growth. So the ones that are more actively growing are more affected by the magnesium deficiency in there, and that's why you see the yellowing. And here we have a plant that's got some of the yellow in it, and it's always, since it's the younger growth, it's always at the tip of the plant. You can see the yellow discoloration there. And basically, under normal conditions, that this yellow flash will not reduce yield to any significant degree. The problem with the yellow flash, it indicates that plants are under stress, and those stresses themselves may reduce the yield, such as dry weather, compaction, heat, which we've had plenty of this year.
Okay. You've also written about, in a column 2 weeks ago, you wrote about spider mites, and that's kind of a problem we haven't had a lot of, but apparently that's also caused by the stress. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Spider mites are favored by high, dry conditions.
Okay.
That's when the populations tend to increase the most and increase the fastest. You see some in the literature where they indicate that rains will kill the spider mites. What rain does is enhance the growth of a fungus that will attack the spider mites, and it will slow down their reproductive rate. So it doesn't actually kill them itself, the rain doesn't, but the fungus that is associated with the conditions and the cooler temperatures, they just can't reproduce as fast, and so the populations will tend to decline over time. I found some examples of it today in the field, and you get this speckling on the leaf, like you can see there. But I looked at it, and I could not find any live spider mites on that leaf. But that is the damage you see. And I saw several fields today that along the edge had those symptoms in the plants. The plants were stunted, and yield is going to be reduced where those plants were like that. But with the weather we got now, I don't think it's going to cause any further damage to the plants.
So it sounds like you're not really recommending that farmers spray for it right now.
Now, even with what little I've seen, there was not enough damage initially to even justify application. I've seen some years where you find spider mites scattered completely across the whole field, and they probably suffered a 25% yield reduction before they got it treated in that case. But it's just not that bad this year. But if you see those symptoms in your field, you can know what caused it, and you know what to look for the next time we have similar conditions.
Okay. Well, I know that our weather causes other diseases and funguses. Can you tell us, I know you brought some examples here, can you tell us some of the things that farmers can look for and scout for in their fields?
One thing right now we're seeing in corn, we're starting to see nitrogen deficiency in the corn. And it's either been used up or there wasn't enough there, or else the stress conditions that we've had and the wet conditions have prohibited the plant from taking up enough of the nutrient. Now this leaf right here is a classic example of nitrogen deficiency in corn. It's an inverted V on the leaf, and the only symptom The only nutrient deficiency that causes that is nitrogen. And I'm starting to see that in some of the fields. But the ears are starting to feel pretty good, so the shortage right now probably won't affect the yield any on that.
Right.
And this tends to be along the edge of the field where maybe they didn't get enough applied, or the wet conditions has just caused the nitrogen to move out of the field. But I wouldn't worry about a nitrogen deficiency right now. This leaf right here with a purple discoloration, this is more a sign of phosphorus deficiency.
Okay.
And again, what happens here is that the plant produces more sugar than it has a place to go with it. Usually what you end up is a plant like this with a very small ear on it or no ear at all. And so it has no place to go with the sugar. So the sugar stays in the plant. It produces a color called anthocyanin, which makes the leaves turn purple. It's the same thing that happens to maple trees in the fall. They make more sugar than the plant can use, so their leaves turn purple. And again, this may not be due to a deficiency, it just may be due to the stress of the plant that it couldn't take up what was there.
Right.
But still, if you see this in your field, you still need to be concerned about what's going on and why you get this discoloration or this deficiency symptom. Is it a shortage? Do you need to soil test? Or is it just the conditions, but you still need to check and make sure?
Okay. And you also brought an example, I think, of stalk rot or beginning stalk rot.
Yes.
Can you show us that?
This plant right here, see, it's got a black spot right here on the stem. Either some organism has moved in, or hail damage, or insect, or whatever has damaged that plant. Anytime you damage a plant, you leave a wound in it and you leave an opening. And any opening in the surface of the plant leaves a place for bacteria and fungi to move in. And some hybrids are showing that, some aren't. But if you see that in the fields, then you need to watch the fields more carefully. If the symptoms develop and go further, you start seeing your stalks deteriorating or weakening out there, then when it comes harvest time, you need to plan ahead and get the ones that have the stalk rots first and let the others wait.
In other words, even if it's the moisture's still a little high, it may be a good thing, it may be economically feasible to go in and get it early.
Yeah, there is a point where you're better off to pay extra drying charges than you are to lose the crop in the field.
Okay. Well, Wayne, we probably knew this would happen because we're in Missouri, but so the weather has changed since the last time we spoke, and now we've had several rains. In fact, just this week, several areas got between 1 to 3 inches. How is that going to change the outlook on the crops? And we've also, and another thing, the weather's cooled down a little bit, or relatively for August, so.
Okay. Yeah, the one problem with corn, if it gets too hot at night, the plant will actually burn energy to keep the plant alive. So whatever carbohydrates it produces during the day, it can burn some of them up at night, and that can lose your yield too. Now these are some ears I pulled out in the field. One of them has got kernels missing on it, because so even though the ear looked good, there's blank spaces on the ear. And then one like this one here, these 2 ears are just starting to dent. And there are some kernels on here that are showing signs of mold.
Okay.
And that's coming in too. Again, you need to check the ears. If you're seeing signs of mold, that needs to be harvested first, and it needs to be dried quickly. You don't want to let it sit in a wet bin long, because this mold will move from kernel to kernel in a bin too.
It will in a bin?
Yes. Because as long as the grain is wet, it's a perfect environment. If you've got kernels that have any kind of mold on them, it needs to be harvested first, and it needs to be dried quickly.
Okay, so farmers need to be looking for that.
Yeah.
Now, it looked like we were going to have harvest really quickly as it was hot and dry and the field started drying up, but now with the cooler weather, it slowed down a little bit. Do you have any predictions on when you think we'll start seeing combines roll?
Well, they started in southeast Missouri this last week.
Oh, okay.
These right here, according to it, we have such a wide range of planting. I would say that earlier planting would probably would start around the 1st of September. Some of the later plantings, it may be the end of September before they get to it. Because as you said, as it gets cooler, it's going to dry down slower. You're seeing some of these fields out there where the ears are starting to break over.
Mm-hmm.
Usually 80% of the moisture is removed through the shank in the ear. when that shank breaks over, the moisture doesn't go through that ear, it has to evaporate through the shucks. So that's going to slow down drying too.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, but if you look at an ear and look at them, according to what article I read the other day from Iowa State, once it starts to dent, you've got about 30 days to harvest.
Okay. And this is, had you pulled any other ears? Had you seen any more with dents, or is this the first time you've really looked at an ear?
I just looked at 2 fields. I haven't looked at any early planting stuff. This field was green. You can see by the stalks that it came out of.
Right.
So this could be a later planted field. I have not looked at any early planted fields yet.
Okay.
But this right here is just getting started, and the kernels are forming, but they've still got a long ways to go yet.
Right.
And there's no black layer, so there's no physiological maturity. Physiological maturity is about 36% moisture, and you would do good to drop a point a day.
Right.
So when it reaches physiological maturity from 36 to say 20 is 16 days under ideal drying conditions, assuming the shank doesn't bend over.
Right. Okay. All right.
As close as I can get.
That's a big prediction.
Yeah.
Well, the better news, well, last week a storm blew through, and I know that it snapped off some corn, especially in the southern part of our county. I know that some fields were probably 50% damaged. So is there any advice you can give for farmers picking that up? Are they going to be able to get any of that?
I talked to a guy that works for an international dealership, and he has 57 customers looking for reels for their corn head right now.
Right. The reels that you put on front on your corn head that helps pick it up?
I also understand that if you bought a Pioneer product, they have a voucher to help you buy a corn reel too. But there are some fields that are 100% lodged. There's not a single stalk standing in the fields.
Is that right?
There's 195 acres I heard about that's not a single stalk standing. About the only thing you can do is get a reel, drive slow, or put up fence and buy animals and graze it.
Right. Okay. Group of sows, right?
Yeah, sows.
The better news is with the storm this week and last week, we've had rain.
Right.
And we've had some moisture. So how will that help the soybeans or the corn? Will it help that too?
It'll help the corn some. Mainly what you're going to get is an improvement in test weight. This stuff's getting long. It doesn't have very much growing season left to fill the pods. Any place you got a kernel missing or a poor seed set, it can't do anything. It cannot make new kernels. Beans have a better capacity to flex their growth pattern. And so you've got the pods on here. One thing the rain will do is it will slow down pod abortion. Soybeans, when they get stressed, will abort the youngest pods first.
Okay.
And if we get rain, it won't abort as many younger pods. Also, you will get seed abortion within a pod. The rain will stop that. But the biggest factor is probably going to be in the size of beans you get in the pod. And you've still got plenty of, the beans have got a long ways to go yet. You've got a chance to fill the beans, get better test weight. But we've had some people out there looking, and the seeds per pod number has already been reduced, and that won't come back. So seed size is about the only option you got now.
Okay. So, well, thank you, Wayne. I appreciate it. Just like last time, we want to invite our viewers to call or write me and let me know if they have any topics they'd like us to discuss, or if they have some questions for Wayne. You can email me at mgorel@marshallnews.com, or you can call me at 660-886-2233. And I want to thank Wayne for being here, and I want to thank Central Missouri Agri-Service for sponsoring the second edition of Crop Concerns for Video. Thank you.